Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Robbins told us, my shortest seminar is 50 hours. I must tell you that my shortest speech is 50 hours too. Don't be too afraid. I'm very happy to take the floor today in the very impressive city of Dubai, in front of such a distinguished audience, on the occasion of the opening of the World Government Summit. I would like first of all to thank His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, for his warm welcome yesterday in Abu Dhabi. As you know, France and the UAE are strategic partners since the creation of the Federation. And as a French finance minister, I'm here to recall that we want to strengthen that partnership and that we believe in the future of that relationship, especially in new fields like artificial intelligence. I also would like to thank His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai, and the Minister of State Omar Al-Olama, for their invitation to my first WGS. The development of your country is incredible, especially in the field of economy. And I strongly believe that the UAE will play an increasing role in the 21st century, and I'm looking for that. Last year, the French Prime Minister took the floor in this very place, and he explained the choice of openness and economic overhaul made by our government under the leadership of President Emmanuel Macron. An enormous amount has been achieved in the first 18 months of this presidency. We made essential reforms for the sake of improving the competitiveness and the simplicity of the French economy in the areas of labor law, taxation, education and training. We just took decisive reforms. The results are there. The meeting Choose France with the most important CEOs of the world held last month in Versailles highlighted how much France's image has totally changed over the past 2 years. And with President Macron, even if we are facing, as you all know, a social crisis right now in France, we remain fully determined to move forward and to continue to implement structural reforms to make France even more attractive to foreign investment. We want France to be the leader in Europe. We will stand firm. We will complete the reforms, and we will succeed. In the next weeks, our Parliament will vote a law to help our SMEs to grow. We will also sell the biggest amount of public assets for 10 billion euros, notably with the privatization of Aéroports de Paris, La Française des Jeux and Engie. This is a very clear evidence of our willingness to move forward, to improve the competitiveness of the French economy, and to provide new funding, 10 billion euros, for the sake of financing innovation, and especially disruptive innovation, which will be the key for the success in the 21st century. Yes, since 2017, France is back, and 2019 will be the key year for us. This year, France will have the presidency of the G7. What are our priorities for this G7? Capitalism as an economic model has proved to be successful for decades. It has taken millions of people out of poverty, and it has ensured year after year an improvement in living standards in many countries around the world. But let's open our eyes. Capitalism is no longer delivering on its promises. Many people in all countries, in all European nations, feel left behind, feel left out of the globalization and of the benefits of the globalization. And the rise of populist parties, extremist parties, all over Europe is a clear signal that we have to take that into account and to find solutions for those people who feel left behind or left out. We believe it's time to create a new and fairer capitalism to provide concrete responses to those people. You cannot have in the same nation one part of the nation having the feeling of being successful and another part having the feeling to be left beside. The changes the world economy is experiencing are all calling into question capitalism as we know it. The rise of China with its own unique development model, the impact of digitalization on all aspects of the economy, such as competition, tax, data, and the calling into question of the multilateral rules are trends which radically change the world as we knew it before the financial crisis of 2008. Wealth is more and more concentrated. Inequalities are increasing. And inequalities are not in the interest of the economy and not in the interest of the unity of nations and the world. In developed countries, standards of living have been stagnating for a decade. We are clearly at a crossroad. And the choice is simple for all of us. Either the elusive solution to turn on ourselves, to try and to rely on our own national resources, to close borders, to erect barriers, and to explain to the people that you can find the solutions alone at the level of the nations without having any multilateralist responses, without any coordination, without any cooperation, and without any solidarity. This solution will lead nowhere but to more poverty, more crisis, more tensions among nations. There is another choice, and this is the choice made by Emmanuel Macron and made by France. The choice is to fight against inequalities. And the fight against inequalities will be at the heart of the French G7 because we strongly believe that this is in the interest of all world nations to fight together against those inequalities and to provide a better world. We want to build a new capitalism. This is the French choice, and this is our common challenge. To meet that challenge, we have defined 3 key priorities for the G7. They are the following. The first one is to introduce a fairer and more efficient global taxation system. People accept to pay taxes when they see how they are being used and when they feel that they are being taxed fairly. If some pay and others don't, it obviously leads to a deep sense of injustice. And injustice is always at the core of negative and violent reactions. This is a massive problem today. Look at the reality. Multinational companies pay less taxes than SMEs. And as the French finance minister, I can no longer explain to the French SMEs that they will have to pay 40 points more taxes than the internet giants because we are not able to tax data and to tax internet activities. Tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance are still very much in the picture too, as well as far too many tax havens and jurisdictions with very low tax rates. That's why France is at the front line for a fair taxation of internet giants. It's a question of efficiency, because we can't fund public goods without a fair taxation of digital activities. But it is also a question of justice, because once again, small SMEs cannot accept to pay more taxes than the richest companies of the world. We hope we can agree to a European solution in March, but in the next weeks, we will also act at the national level by introducing a digital tax in the French law, as well as Spain, Italy, United Kingdom, or Austria will do. We need to accelerate work at a global level. We hope that we will be able to find a consensus at the OECD level on a fair and efficient digital taxation, because it is in the interest of all the world economies to introduce that fair and efficient digital taxation. We also need an effective minimum corporate tax in all developed countries. Today, some companies still have their headquarters located in a tax haven or located in a country with a low corporate tax level, but with subsidiaries in France. There has always been tax competition between countries. Tax competition is not bad as such, as it encourages countries to be more competitive. But zero tax jurisdictions allow companies to circumvent tax fully, and this is totally unacceptable. G7 countries are all aware of this, and we will find solutions to introduce that minimum corporate tax solution. Now, we need to make change happen right now during the French G7. The second key priorities for us will be a level playing field for responsible investments. Today, when France or European countries invest in developing countries, and when it provides a loans guarantee, for example, we checked the impact of the loan on the level of countries' indebtedness, and we ensure we are not investing in such a way which could lead to over-indebtedness and put in difficulties in repayment the poor country. Some countries do not do the same. And as a result, a few years later, the developing country is not in a position to repay its loans and becomes de facto a vassal of its lender. This is not for the benefit of the developing country. And it is unfair to those companies that are promoting responsible investments and want to compete globally on an equal manner. The world needs rules. The world needs a level playing field. If we want to be efficient, we need to abide by the same rules. The third priority is how we tackle inequalities between and within countries. Inequalities is perhaps best illustrated by wage inequality between the best paid and the lowest paid, but also between men and women. We need more transparency. This is what we are doing in France in our law. The biggest companies will need to report on the median wage within their company. Good indicators can help change the mindset by highlighting inequalities, help reduce them. We want to see with other G7 countries what can be done at a global level to develop such a transparency. The last point I wanted to tackle today, after the situation in France and the necessity of fighting against inequalities, which will be once again at the heart of the French willingness for its G7 presidency, is to make Europe stronger. In Europe, France is back too. But we want to move on. And we are deeply convinced that one of the key challenges for the 21st century is to help Europe to be stronger and to be a strong continent between, on the one side, the United States and on the other side, China. We don't want to be crushed between those two continents. We don't want to abide by rules that would not be defined by Europe. We want to be a political power. We want to be a strong economic continent. We want to pave the way for more innovation, for new technologies in Europe. We are calling for a stronger Europe, more integrated, with all the European nations working together, investing together, and trying to build a better world with China, with the United States, and with all the big continents of the world. This means that we have, first of all, to deepen the Eurozone with the creation of new tools like the Eurozone budget. Last June in Meseberg, Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel found a historical agreement on this idea of a Eurozone budget. Tomorrow I will be in Brussels for the monthly meeting of the Ministers of Finance. Of course, the ongoing debates within the Eurogroup is vivid. This is normal, this is exactly how Europe works. But this Eurozone budget will be created in 2021. We will build a common capital market union. We will build a banking union. We want to reinforce the euro as our common currency. And I'm deeply convinced that if we are able to build that euro as one of the strongest currencies in the world, if we are able to build that common capital market union, the banking union, the Eurozone budget, you will have the rise of a strong economic and financial continent in Europe. The EU also needs a lot of changes. Some of our rules are outdated. You may have followed what happened this week with the refused merger between Alstom and Siemens. France and Germany regret the decision of the Commission. Our conclusion is that the European competition rules are outdated. In the European election, we will strongly campaign for a renewal of the European competition law for the next Commission. Let me be clear. This is not a question of ideology. This is a question of efficiency. This is a question of reality. If the European industry wants to have a future, we need that kind of mergers. We need to put together the German, the French, the Italian, the Spanish forces for the sake of having industrial champions being able of investing in new technologies and in innovation. The world economy is more brutal and less fair. We want Europe and European companies to have all the tools to compete and to succeed. And France will not spare its efforts to convince our European partners to gather our efforts, to gather our investments, to gather our funding for the sake of reinforcing our European continent. To conclude, this is clearly a moment of truth for the world. We all know it, and I really want to seize that opportunity to recall that in that moment of truth, we need the engagement, the commitment of everybody. As the motto of this World Government Summit states, We are here. Governments are here. Citizens are here. NGOs are here. Associations are here to shape the future and to shape a better future for our children. So let us try all together to seize the opportunity of the current challenges we face to reshape a fairer capitalism, a more efficient economy for the 21st century. Europe will be there. France will be there. I really urge you to join for the sake of making the world better. Thank you.